Welcome to Opening the Door to the Unknown with your host, Dr. Clark Schmidt. Welcome to the studios of Opening the Door to the Unknown. Oh, I'm your host, Dr. Clark Schmidt. Just the other day, I was talking to a friend of mine during lunch on some of the aspects of the metaphysical, the esoterics, and hermeticism, and mentioned about mediumship. And the question asked of me was, well, what do you know about mediumship? And I came back with the reply, well, enough to be dangerous. And this friend of mine began to laugh, and I says, no, really. I said, I'm a mental medium, and at times can be a physical medium if I go into deep trance and if I had a spirit circle. And so he was asking me about spirit themselves, and I said, "Well, what do you want to know about spirit?" And he asked, "Well, what's this that I hear about that we have spirit guides?" And I said, "Well, that's a great subject that you have asked." I said, "I could take an hour, I could take a day, I could take a year on the subject. But since we only have an hour in the studio, that's what I'm going to give you as the viewer, an hour's worth of what I feel, what spirit guides are, and how to contact." Now, we all have guides, teachers, master teachers, sometimes angels, and they help us in more ways than one. For an example, one of the guides that we have is an Indian guide. Now, Indian guide can be chiefs. Say, for an example, Chief Joseph, Chief Eagle Feather, Chief Crazy Horse. Trying to think of one more here real quick. Chief, trying to think. Chief, just a minute. There's just so many. Chief, oh, come on. Chief, well, I got a mental block here of naming one other Pontiac. Okay, Chief Pontiac for an example. And the reason why they have taken us under their wing is because Indians are very spiritual in nature. I think there's that at times is that Indians are more spiritual than classified as white men in their belief system. Okay? But anyways, we do have Indian guides. Now, they're not necessarily all chiefs. Some could be braves. Okay? For an example, if a person has the warrior the warrior mentality. For an example, you enlist into service, and instead of going into the Air Force, you enlist in the Marines because Marines are the most toughest outfit in all the services. So why did you enlist in the Marines? Because you had that warrior mentality. Meaning is you have a Indian warrior that's backing you, that's pushing you in that direction. To get out there, um, to become um, a fighting warrior, especially when it comes to wars, for an example. Not saying that all services do not have um, Indian braves, but then again, you might have a chief. I have, for an example, my Indian guide is Chief Eagle Feather. And now Chief Eagle Feather was from, I forget just what tribe um, that he was, but it was down here in Florida, going way back in the back in the early 1800s. And he had a powwow with President Andrew Jackson before the Trail of Tears. And this is where 5,000 Indians were being relocated onto reservations, and a lot of them, and over 1,000 died on the trail. Okay, it's just like this friend of mine who's a physical medium has Chief Joseph. Now you can look up, say for an example, you might have a dream one night that you're talking to a particular, like an Indian, could be a chief or a warrior, and they will give you their name. Okay, just look the name up, and it's maybe and it's not a name that you have heard until you tell that to a skeptic. Then here's what the skeptic will say: oh, you've heard that name before. You just don't know it because it went into the subconscious. You could have heard the name of Chief blah blah by watching a Western, or you were reading a book, or you were doing some type of research on a particular tribe. So that's how the skeptic would. That's how the skeptic would say is how you know the name of that chief or of that warrior. But a lot of times as well is that you might go to a spirit circle, and the Indian, again, the chief or the warrior will come out and introduce themselves, especially to you. Nobody else in the circle, but actually to you. And they'll usually give you what tribe and they will usually give what tribe that they belong to. So that's how I knew about Chief Eagle Feather. This was again many years ago, and when I went to the spirit circle, I was introduced to the chief, is that I went to the public library, and I did some research, and out of all the books that were written about Indians, is that it was the last one, and I happened to find Chief Eagle Feather. So that's how I know that that good chief actually existed. But like I said, a lot of times they will come through dreams. They might come through a movie, to emphasize the word or the name of that particular warrior or chief, or through a spirit circle. Or you even might get one, or you even might get a name from working with the spirit box. You just have to ask. Guides, teachers, master teachers will be happy to introduce themselves to you. They want to be introduced. Okay? Because the closer that you get to your guides, teachers, and master teachers, the more that they will definitely work with you. The more they will definitely work with you to keep you on that spiritual path. Okay? That's their job. All right. Now, Do particular guides teachers, master teachers, um, pick a person? Yes, they can for certain reasons. For an example, you might have a master teacher that was a doctor, say doctor of chemistry, and that doctor wants you to study um, to become a chemist or maybe a pharmacist to go and get your degree in that field. And so the doctor of chemistry will continue pushing you in that direction. Now you might not understand what you're feeling because of the direction of being pulled to, but it's your doctor of chemistry. My doctor of chemistry is named Dr. Browning. Now he told me when I first was introduced to him is that to drink a glass of water. Now the water is not regular tap water, but it is distilled water. So what he told me is to pour some distilled water into a glass, leave it overnight on the nightstand, and when I woke up the next morning to down it, to drink it. So I did. Now the water had a little bit different taste to it. It wouldn't have tasted what it did taste just by being sitting in the glass overnight. So Dr. Browning did something, either added a chemical or changed the composition of the water itself, but it was supposed to do some type of transition with my body chemistry. So, but there's always reasons. Like I said, there's always reasons for a master teacher to give you that type of guidance, direction, advice. Okay, now through free will, you can either take that advice or you don't have to take the advice. Usually, if a guide or a teacher, master teacher is giving me advice, I'm usually going to listen to that advice. Okay, I'm not going to put it on the top shelf and forget about it. At times, I will question through when I'm in meditation, is that I will telepathically talk to one of my guides, teachers, or master teachers, and found out the reason why they want me to go in that particular direction. Also, you might have a doctor of medicine, a doctor of philosophy, a doctor of mathematics, a doctor of astronomy, whoever. These are classified as your master teachers. Then you have the teacher. Let's if one thinks about a teacher, they are trying to teach you something. It's like when you are in grade school going into high school, you have teachers, not professors. When you are in a college or university setting, then you definitely have professors in their particular field of study. Then you have what they call is the guides, and the guides guide you. It's like if you join the Boy Scouts or the Cub Scouts, the Girl Scouts, the Brownies, the Eagles, whatever it is, that you have a guide that will teach you how to survive in the wilderness in case you have to. Will show you nature. Okay, so that's what the guides do. Then you have what is called the gatekeepers. The gatekeepers, my gatekeeper is named Daisy, and she is a air sprite. Um, I don't think is that she is a pixie or a fairy, but she is an air sprite. And what gatekeeper does is that, for an example, you might be on your spirit box, and you're talking to somebody and you want to have a particular question answered, and so you want to know maybe one of your guides, teachers, master teachers' names, and so you will, and so you say to your gatekeeper, could you please bring forward for me my guide teacher or master teacher, so I can get to know their name. And that's exactly what they'll do. They'll make sure is that the one that you requested will be the only one that you should be able to talk to. So she is like the gatekeeper is like the riot control police. So the rioters do not try to cross the barrier to cause more problems, because once you open the door, or once you open up communication with the spirit box, you're going to have hundreds of spirits that want to talk, yak 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 yak, and they're pushing each other, okay, trying to get into the front, trying to get into the front of the line so they can talk. Well, again, that's what the gatekeeper does. Make sure is that the riot riot is controlled to where there's some semblance in the communication during that session with the spirit box. I had now I told now I don't know which way how I want to explain this, because I think it's kind of amazing myself. I guess the only way that I should go is in this direction. Is that last Halloween, I was using my Hack Shack spirit box, and I was decided, since it was Harry Houdini's birthday, is that I decided to try to contact Harry Houdini, because people have said well, we never contacted Harry Houdini through all the seances that were performed before his wife Bess died. So I said, okay, I'm going to see if I can try to contact Houdini. So I said, Mr. Houdini, are you here? Are you here? And I did it a couple of times, and all of a sudden I got a response. And I said, what's your name? And the gentleman said, Harry Houdini. And I said, well, what was your given name? And he said, Eric Weiss. So I knew that and I said, well, where did you live growing up? What was one of the states and towns that you lived in? And he said, Appleton, Wisconsin. So now I knew there was no doubt in my mind that that I was in contact with Harry Houdini. And so we got so I asked him if it would be all right for me to call him Harry instead of Mr. Houdini or Mr. Weiss, and he came back with the reply, Harry. So I said, Harry it is. Well, that was the first and only time that, and he said, I'm your guide. He says, I am your guide. And I asked the question, well, why? And he came back and said, magic. Now, I don't think that he was talking about the type of magic that he performed in his corporeal lifetime. So I think that when he said magic, it was like the magic that I practice. And so I thanked him, and I haven't had any contact with him since last no since last November, October, since last October. The other night, I downloaded this new app by Extreme Senses called the Afterglow Box or whatever it is. So I decided to try it out. So turned the damn thing on, and I said, well, who do I want to contact? So I said Harry Houdini. So anyways, I kept calling. I said, is Mr. Houdini here? Mr. Houdini here? Mr. Houdini here? And I kept getting by other spirits, he's not here. So I called upon Chief Eagle Feather, my Indian chief, if he could go and bring back or try to find Mr. Houdini, and he said, be right back. Now I got this all written down, and that's the reason why I'm reading it here on this piece of paper. So then he came back and he said, place. So I said, is Mr. Houdini in place so I can talk to him? And he said, yes. And then I asked a question, and Chief Eagle Feather said, can we? And I'm trying to figure, well, can we what? And then it dawned on me, can we talk to Harry Houdini? So I asked Mr. Houdini, I said, can I ask you I said, Mr. Houdini, can I ask you a particular question? And he said, tell me. And I asked, and so I said, well, do you know a particular person who I'm not going to mention? Oh, I remember what it was. I said, can anybody, I want to make sure I get this right. All right, I got it. Is it possible for say like me to help somebody cross over into another dimensional plane of existence? And he said, nothing. And I said, and I repeated, nothing. And he said, no. Well, that told me right off the bat when he said nothing and no, that you cannot cross anybody over onto the other side, getting into, but he didn't say this, but it's coming, but you have to finish what might be the end of the conversation, is that no, nothing, you cannot cross anybody over into the light elevator and let the light draw and let that elevator go up to heaven. So then I asked, in what century did he what century did he reside? And he said last century, and then he said 20, and then he said 20. He said last century, which would be when he was born in 1888. And when he died in 1926. And so I asked him another question, and he said, speak. And I said, do you know this particular person? And he said, yes. And I said, well, what do you think about this particular person? And he said, I think he sucks. And I said, sure. And he comes back, sure. And then he said, good night. So that was the end of the conversation that I had with Harry Houdini just the other night, which I thought was pretty astounding in that sense. Now, I think if anybody knows about Houdini, is that he said that he and Bess had a secret word or a secret code, that if he was going to come back, is that they were the only two that would know the code, as to prove is that it was Houdini that was in communication with, I think it was with Arthur Ford. And so Ford supposedly got in contact with Harry, and the code was revealed that night. Now, a lot of skeptics who were around the seance table, um, people from, you had one from Scientific America, one from the New York Times, one from, let's see, I'm trying to remember, Scientific America, New York Times, the Herald, um, and a few other newspapers said is that they never, that Arthur Ford never contacted Harry Houdini, that, it was a figment of everybody's imagination, that Ford was faking it because he already knew the code, is because is that supposedly is at best was becoming alcoholic, that she was shooting off her mouth to people, and that's how Ford got to know the code. One of these days, I will take the time to find out, to try to get the code, or if the code through Harry has been given to Bess when Arthur Ford actually had the seance. But I will let you know later on that. Be no doubt about that. Okay. Again, is that with guides, teachers, master teachers, sometimes they can also be your relatives. Not saying your mother or father, but going back to aunts, uncles, grandparents, great grandparents, um, going through generation after generation after generation. Oh, okay. And the reason why I feel is that sometimes that you might get a family relative because they're a lot more closer. They're a lot more closer to you. Just like your mother and father were close to you. Now, my sister always, well, I shouldn't say that because I haven't asked her for a long time if my mother still hangs around my sister. So I'm going to definitely have to ask her that. My mother used to hang around and used to give my sister advice, especially when it came to the stock market. And my sister always listened to my mother because my mother was good at what she did, especially with the market itself. She always made money. In fact, I used to say, how come she didn't become a broker? And she laughed. She says, damn, too much work. She says, I just like toying with it. I just like toying with it. And so once in a while, my sister say, Mother came through, and she kept saying toying with it. So I knew is that she was helping her again with the stock market. So your guides, teachers, and master teachers are very helpful. To direct you. For an example, say that you need a parking space and you can't find one. But if you knew who your Indian guide or chief is, or all you have to do is call upon the warrior or the chief and say, I need some help, telepathically, I need some help to find a parking spot. Usually they will. Chief Eagle Feather used to help me all the time. And I always thanked them, of course. But they're always happy, to oblige. They don't want to be bothered all the time, though. Okay? It's like you don't want to be bothered all the time. If you need you need a break. You need a break from from friends calling every 5 minutes on the 10, or having friends knocking at your door and says, "Come on, let's go out," or whatever you say is, "Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. I need some space. I need my time by myself. It's been a hectic day. You know, I'm not trying to be rude, but I'm just tired. I just want to watch, have a supper and watch a little television, or watch, or get on the computer a little bit, and then I'm going to go to bed." But that's the way the guides, teachers, and master teachers are, is that they don't want to be bothered all the time. When I play, when I want to contact somebody like C. Hiram Abiff, for an example. Now, I mentioned some of my guides on Spirits Everywhere. I think it's in chapter 4 or 5. I think it's 5, chapter 5. Is that if you go back, it'll give you a little bit more information with some of my guides, and I even show you pictures of them as well. So I'm not going to really get into it, but again, like I did in chapter 5. But when I need to get a hold of to Master Teacher C. Hiram Abiff, I usually telepathically call upon him, and I ask him a particular question in the metaphysical, and I usually get a direct answer, and boom, that's and then I can use the answer that was given or conveyed to me by Mr. Abiff. Now, like I said, I usually don't bother my guides, teachers, and master teachers. I think is that maybe I contact them maybe once every few weeks. And when they want to talk to me, for me to get onto the spirit box, they will usually give me a holler, you might say, in their own way. Believe me, because they want to talk. I think it's interesting. I really think it's interesting with guides, teachers, and master teachers. Now, getting with angels, for an example, angels can be a guide, not a teacher or a master teacher, but as a guide. Sometimes a guide, teacher, or master teacher cannot kind of get you in the direction they want you to get to travel down. So your angel, and we all have angels. Okay, we all have angels, and they will come down and give you that extra kick in a keister to get you moving. Okay, and sometimes you feel and actually physically feel that kick in the ass. I know, myself, I have felt that kick, and it's not a light one either. I mean, it's like a boom, a kick to get, hey, Schmidt, get moving. Okay. And a lot of times, again, through dreams, if you're astral projecting in a higher plane of existence for that trip taken with the astral body, you might come across your angel or archangel or a cherubim. You might hit one, and they'll be happy to introduce themselves to you. Again, they have been assigned. It's just like your guides, teachers, and master teachers have been, have taken upon themselves to assign themselves to you, but and they can leave any time, or you can kick them, or you can say to them, is that you're not really helping me in the direction I want to go. Can you please leave and replace me with somebody that can help me a little bit better? Okay, they'll be happy to go. Okay, they'll be more than happy to go, and they are, and the guide teacher, master teacher, will definitely be replaced. But when an angel or archangel has been assigned to you, they cannot leave you. They are yours, even when you pass over on to the other side. They're always there to help you. You just gotta ask. But then again, it's not like saying is, well, gee, I got an angel or an archangel or a cherubim or a cherubim. Maybe they can. Maybe if I ask them real nice, they'll give me the lottery numbers for the $100 billion drawing tonight. Ain't going to happen. Well, maybe if I asked, you might have a guide. For some reason that has to get rid of karma, and he was a gambler back in the 20s. And so you get a name and you ask him what his function is, and he says, well, he will say, I was a gambler. You just might hear gambler. Well, then you know is that this particular guide teacher or master teacher for some, is a gambler. And you say, well, I got a gambler for a guide teacher, master teacher. Maybe he will, if I ask him very nicely, give me the numbers to the lottery for the drawing tonight. Ain't going to happen. Because that guide teacher or master teacher, and yes, gamblers are masters at their trade. Is that he is trying to shake off some karma to move into a higher plane, to moving into a higher realm, plane of existence. He wants to climb that. He wants to climb the ladder to get onto the next level. So don't expect a lot of favoritism, if you will, by your guides, teachers, or master teachers. If you need a job, they will guide you into that job, point you in the direction to fill out an application. If you're not feeling well, you might have a master teacher who's a physician that's trying to give you the warning signs, and you got to go and see a doctor. If you are thinking about doing something in the negative, you have a guide that will pull you back and say, give you a little, maybe a scratch to say is, So they do so like I said, they do have functions, but like I said, there's going to be no damn favoritism of you winning the lottery. Maybe there might be, or whatever. Mostly though, when I talk about this subject, is that people say, well, can I win the lottery? No. Impossible. Ain't going to happen. Okay, you got to play just like everybody else and take the chances. If you're plunked on $1, $5, or $20, you're still taking a chance like millions of other people. But you might have a guide that was proficient in with women. Okay, not saying that your guide might become Casanova, but that could happen as well. But that particular guide will push you in the direction of romance. Say this is the right person instead of that person. Stay away from that person because he or she is not going to be any good for you. Work with this person. Work with this person over here. Better match. Okay. So that is how the guides, teachers, and master teachers operate. Okay. I mean, it's no real big. I mean, really, if you think about it, it's not really a big mystery, okay? But it is opening the door to the unknown if you never experienced having a knowing, I should say, knowing that you do have these guides, teachers, and master teachers um, to help, because a lot of people just think, as well, I got my guardian angel. That's true. Like I said, everybody's got an angel that has been assigned to you, and that angel will never leave you. All right? Not to function to leave. They got their marching orders, you might say. But again, guides, teachers, and master teachers, they latch on to you, figuring that you're a challenge to work with. Because again, they want to get rid of maybe some type of negative karma that they couldn't get rid of when they were still residing on this third dimensional plane of existence. Okay? And that's great. You know, I mean, really, that really is great. And you can have some really fantastic guides, teachers, and master teachers. Like I said, I didn't know I had Harry Houdini until last October, on his birthday on the 31st, Halloween. So you never know. So like I said, they will, if you want to get to know who they are, is just if you're playing around, or if you're on the ghost box or the spirit box, just ask, and you might get a name. And if you get the name, then ask them what type of, if they're a guide, teacher, master teacher, or if they are a gatekeeper, and what was their function in life, and they'll be happy to tell you. Or like I says, again, you might get them in a dream, or you might get the name by watching a television program or reading a magazine or a book, or you might hear the name by talking to a friend that comes out with a certain name that you never heard of. And, you know, so, and if you do, and if you got the spirit box, just call upon that name and say, are you a guide, teacher, master teacher, or a gatekeeper? And like I said, they'll be happy to talk. They'll be happy to communicate, because that's what they want to do. They want to communicate with you. That's their function. So don't be, you know, but you don't abuse them. It's just like you wouldn't want to be abused. All right, and talking about abuse, I'm changing the subject. I'm changing the subject now. Is that the person going over the weekend and watching a video, is that there has been a war, you might say, between two people, and one person has outed the other person. But after watching 4 hours, is that I thought to myself, this person went about it the wrong way. Completely went about it the wrong way. And you're saying, well, what way should have this person gone? Well, I tell you, what's worse than to out somebody like this person did about something that happened in their past. Because whatever happened in somebody's past, people don't give a damn. They're going to say, hey, it was in their past, so why are you bringing that up? Which I feel is true. Whatever happened back then, it's history. It's over and done with. But how I would have done it was that would hurt the person even more, and it wouldn't be slander or a libel. Because I think what's going to happen is that maybe this person is going to get sued, and I don't know, but I think because possibility of, put it that way, possibility of. But here's how I would have gone about it. If say for example, when I had my school back in Fort Lauderdale, is that if I was going to hire a teacher, I would ask these following questions. What is your expertise? What do you want to teach? Yada, yada, yada. Well, how long have you been teaching yada, yada, yada? Oh, about 6 years. 6 years. Um, have you done any advanced study uh, with what you know? Well, not actually. Well, did you write up any type of paper on it? Like write up a paper and send it maybe to via email um, to the SPR in London, or the American Society of Physical Research in I just forget where they're located. I think it's California, Virginia, I think, and also with the Parapsychological Foundation in New York. Well, no, I never thought about that. Well, did you ever talk to anybody? Have you ever talked to anybody who has been in the field, say, for like 10, 15, 20 years on the subject, and maybe have given you some ideas how to continue on your research in the subject that you want to teach? Well, no, because I really don't know it. I really don't know anybody. You see where I'm going here? If the person hasn't advanced themselves, and they only been in work with the subject matter for say about 6 years, to me that is a novice, and they have no business teaching a course on the subject, because they have nothing to say, is because maybe what they're going to be teaching to the student or students, they already know, and they may be a little bit higher in knowledge than the person who wants to teach the course. So that's useless for me to hire this person to pay them to teach something that the students might know more about. Well, that's just like this particular person is that saying is that they only been in the field for 6 years. Well, my question be is, how did he get into the field? Why did he get into the field? Who did he talk to? Was he ever written up in any newspapers or magazines in the for metaphysical publications? Has he talked to somebody, again, 10, 15, 20 years with experience? Has he ever taught a course on the particular subject? I hope that you're following me with this. This is where you can get the people to show themselves that they really think that they might know something, but in reality they don't. And then then there is no libel or slander against them. It's like they're not qualified to be talking about the particular subject at hand. Okay? And so, like I said, that is a lot better way of outing a person than what this other person did, trying to out the person. Because if people have been following in politics, you had a certain person that was under investigation, and what happened? Zip, nada, nothing. And the only thing that came out was that this person was extremely negligent in certain things. Well, so, and people don't care. Okay, it's it's the qualification and the lies that are going to get somebody. It's not going to be what they did going back 20 years ago. Okay, because we have all done some shady things in our lifetime that we are ashamed about. Okay, and yes, you can bring it out and say, yes, all right, I did this, and I'm a bad, like Lou Costello, I'm a bad boy. Right. You may be forgiven and you may not. But make sure, but like I said, is that this person has so-called now more of a following than what he did before. You get it? The only way to out these people and to shut them up is what are their qualifications? How long have they been working? Have they written up anything? Have they been interviewed with prestigious metaphysical journals, newspapers? Have they written up again like a book? Any papers sent to the SPR, the American Society of Physical Research, to the Parapsychological Foundation in New York, the three most prestigious institutes in the working in the field of the metaphysical, esoterics, and also hermetics. Okay. Have they gone around the lecture? Have they gone around the lecture circuit? And we're not just talking about, well, I talked to blah blah, who created this and who created that. I don't give a damn if this person that you talked to created. What did you do to make you qualified? You've been in you've been in this field for 6 years. Well, whoop-de-doo. That's like saying is that you went from kindergarten to 5th grade. That's where your level is. You're in the 5th grade now. 6 years. Whoop-de-doo. Where is your senior in high school? Where is it that you are equivalent to a senior in high school, or a master's in university or college? You get where I'm coming from? Work that way. And you can always tell if you talk to somebody just by asking those particular questions. And they'll kind of hem-haw around and say, well, I'm 6 years, 4 years. Well, you could probably teach that person who classified himself as an expert. And remember, in ITC field, there are no experts. Like I said, anybody can get a spirit box, turn it on, start to call and start to ask what for spirit. The spirit will answer, and now you're classified as an expert in the field. You have people again, and I mentioned Mark Macy in chapter 7, and Mark Macy has been in the field since the late 80s, early 90s, and so he knows about ITC working with the group over on the other side called Time Stream. You have another person, Kevin Himes, who's been working with the Circle for the last few months. Well, that is a lot more advanced than somebody who has been, I talked to Johnny Cash, and I talked to Prince, and I helped Johnny Cash, who claimed to be in hell, and I got him crossed over into the white light elevator to make him go, to get him up to heaven. That's a qualification. That's not even a qualification because it didn't happen. So you got to catch their lies. Not their past, but their lies as to keep followers. Once you catch them in lies, okay, then all of a sudden the following will start to dwindle very quickly. Okay? Anyways, that's my spiel for today. Is on guides teachers, master teachers, and also how to really out somebody without being sued for slander and libel. Like I said, um, you cannot be sued for that, because then you could sue every uh, potential job interview that you had. I'm going to sue them for slander and libel because they asked me a particular question. Hey, you want the job, you give the answers, then you better have the right answers. Anyways, all I can say is be well, be good, and until next time, bye. Anyways, um, this has been a production of Opening the Door to the Unknown in association with Dr. Clark Schmidt, copyright 2016.